In this unit, we've been looking at the post-classical Middle East, a region that was marked by the dual rise of Islam, a religion, and the Arab Empire, a state, both founded by Muhammad in the Arabian Peninsula. Today, we are going to continue to explore how we get from a desert nomadic culture in a powerless part of the world to an empire and a religion strong enough and capable of experiencing a golden age, while Europe was in its own dark ages. A large part of that story has to do with trade, and that's what we're going to start talking about today. We've already seen that Islam, the religion, is the third iteration of Abrahamic religions. It descends from Judaism and Christianity, and Islam is different because Muhammad believed that he was the final prophet. Islam has its holy book in the Quran, its holy place in Mecca, its city of origin, and it believes in the 5 pillars of Islam. And we've seen that Islam, like universal religions tend to, appealed to the poor, spread because of voluntary conversion. So like people wanted to become Islamic as a universal religion. It spread with the borders of the Arab Empire. The Arabs did not force people they conquered to adopt Islam. They allowed Jews and Christians to continue to practice their own religions. They did have to pay a tax, but that tax was in place of the charity tax that all Muslims have to pay to the poor. And today we're going to see how it spread along trade routes through merchants and missionaries. This is also part of the story of the Arab Empire, the state, though, because even though Islam spread farther than the state's focus on trade allowed the Arab Empire to experience a golden age of tolerance, progress, innovation, and wealth, the likes of which had not been seen in that part of the world. We saw last time, too, that the Arab Empire, for its part, was able to expand quite so fast because, first, it began with nomads, and nomads are great on horseback, so they were able to do really fast cavalry strikes and gain a lot of territory. They were able to expand into the power vacuum in North Africa that arose when Rome fell. And because of some of its strengths, Islam, its unifying ideology, became a strength of the empire. Not only did it unite the people within the empire, but because of the success of the empire, Islam became an appealing aspect of it. Moreover, because all Muslims must learn Arabic to read the Quran, the Arab Empire had a common language in Arabic, and that common language allowed communication and ideas to spread much more easily, and it united the people more than if they had all been speaking different languages. And finally, fair treatment of conquered people. This is not something that all empires do. We saw the Persian Empire do this in Unit 3. This idea that if you conquer people, but you don't force them to adopt your culture, you can instead use their skills to strengthen your empire if they're not constantly fighting you. So tolerance was really, really a strength of the Arab Empire. Today, though, we're going to focus on the trade part of the story. And to do that, we are going to first look at this map. This is a map of the Muslim world. So we're talking about the religion, not a state, around the year 1200. And you'll note that the Muslim world is bigger than the lines of the state. The Arab Empire here is outlined in reds and oranges and yellows, depending on like what time we're looking at. You can see it's huge. But the extent of the Muslim world goes quite well beyond that. You can see that outlined in red. And the thing that accounts for this spread of Islam far beyond the borders of the Arab Empire is trade, specifically 2 trade networks. The Trans-Saharan Trade, that, like it sounded like, crossed the Saharan Desert, and the Indian Ocean trade networks, which is also what it sounds like, trade in the Indian Ocean basin. Remember, anytime we talk about trade, we're talking about the spread not only of goods, but also of religion, ideas, technology, culture, and disease. Strong long-distance trade like this requires stable political contexts. No to go trade in a war zone or in a situation in which getting robbed is more likely than making money. Makes sense. Trade also results in, often, social progress. Usually comes with the free exchange of ideas like you get when people of different cultures meet when trading. And more money. And when societies have more money, then they can invest in their own empires and infrastructures, and that tends to make everything better. So we're going to start by looking at the Trans-Saharan trade route. What it sounds like, right? The Saharan Desert is big and vast, and this was the trade route that went directly through it during the post-classical age. Have a look at the picture on the top right. The Sahara Desert is not an easy place to live. It is not an easy place to cross. In fact, you have to really know what you're doing in order to make it. Therefore, it has been a natural barrier separating northern and sub-Saharan Africa for a long time, but especially before people figured out how to use camels to traverse it, to cross it. North Africa generally, as you can see on that map, it's mostly covered by the Sahara Desert, so it's very dry, with very low population densities, with the notable exception of the Nile River Valley. The Trans-Saharan Trade network is pictured on the map on the bottom right of this slide. It began in the classical period and expanded when camels began to be used, but especially later with the arrival of Arab traders in the post-classical period. This was a network that was rich for its exchange of gold and salt. And here you have to think back with like your history mind. Salt is not as common in history as it is today. Today we have table salt everywhere. Back in the day, salt was really hard to find and really expensive and important because before refrigeration, salt was a way to preserve food. So this was a trade network that was rich with those two primary goods, but not just that, also ivory and koala nuts and horses and copper and dates and slaves. This network linked West Africa and the Mediterranean regions. In this time period, especially the Middle East and North Africa, did not so much make it to Europe. And in this time period, it gave rise to two fantastically wealthy empires, the Ghana Empire and the Mali Empire in West Africa. These empires became rich by exporting gold and taxing traders who traded along the Trans-Saharan trade networks. These networks also diffused Islam to West Africa through merchants and missionaries, so people who went spreading the message of Islam, but also people who traded with Muslim merchants. And you have to remember, think back historically, Islam was a new idea. The Arab Empire was a new state. And what people saw was the strength of this idea leading to the strength of a great state. So traders, some of them converted because they saw the success of the Arab Empire as proof that their religion was true. Some of them converted because being Islamic made it easier to trade with Islamic traders, and that was a ticket to wealth. Some of them the idea. But in any case, this is how Islam made it all the way to West Africa, well beyond the borders of the Arab Empire. And we'll leave you with some maps.